Hello, this is Ken Ferrie with this week's Boots in the Field report. Had a couple of weeks of great meetings with everyone. It was good to see everybody. A lot of questions were asked, and a lot of questions were asked about the status of the 45Z tax credit. Where does it stand? What should we do? Can we do anything? The short answer is we don't know at this point. But some progress has been made, or at least some info has been released by both the IRS and the USDA. They're looking for public comments on their proposals, and they'll be taking comments until April 10th, which means we don't know anything till at least April, but I suspect it'll be a lot longer than that before we do. And this seems crazy on a bill that went in effect January 1st. What we do know: the IRS and the Department of Energy released a new version of the GREET model to calculate CI scores. This version is the GREET 45Z-CF. This version is proposed to be the model that fuel producers use to calculate their CI scores. One noticeable difference to this version is there's no feedstock calculator for the farmers to use to score their grain. But then on January 16th, the USDA released their version of a feedstock carbon intensity calculator. This model is based off the DECENT work, or the DECENT model, not the CREET model. This proposal is a much simpler model to score your farm with. Some components of it will make things a lot easier to get done. Some components of it, though, will be a challenge for certain growers. On the simple side, there are only about really 4 questions, maybe 5, that you need to answer. Are you planting a cover crop? What's your tillage program? No-till, reduced-till. When are you applying your nitrogen? And are you using a approved nitrification inhibitor? And how many bushel did the field produce? So if we break that down for cover crops, you can use winter kill or overwintering crops. Cover crops can be crimped, chemically killed, or winter killed. But you can't take them out with tillage and you can't burn them off. The residue needs to stay at the surface. For tillage, it'll deal with the stir factor, looking at speed and type of tillage and depth. It all comes into play whether you're in no-till or reduced-till. Moving your N from fall to spring and into side dress would lower your score, and or using a nitrification inhibitor. In the USDA's proposal, each entity would have a CI score. So it wouldn't be a CI score per bushel, it'd be a CI score per entity. So your entity would be scored on all of your acres across there. Whether they're going into ethanol or not, they would all be scored. So if you have a father entity and a son entity, they'd each have a separate CI score. Feedstock calculator would be county-based, so state and county. The same practices used in central Iowa may not score the same as those practices used in central Illinois. In the USDA proposal, there is no credit for using manure. Now, this is a big change from scoring it in the GREET model. Using manure there instead of commercial fertilizer dropped your scores hard because you're recycling fertilizer. You're not mining it and processing it and bringing it to the farm. In the USDA proposal is mass balance, meaning that your grain, if you mix your grain with somebody else's, that score is going to have to be refigured for that grain. And many people, of course, hope for the book and claim where you could separate the carbon asset or credit from the grain and sell them in different places. But with mass balance approach, the grain must go to the end fuel production user. So it's got to go for fuel. With all this up for public comment and a new administration, no one really knows how this thing will look in the end. What can we do in the meantime? Records are going to be essential. Along with farm records, backed up with receipts, delivery tickets, any as-applied maps, they need to be preserved. So again, you need to keep your as-applied maps for all the fertilizer going on out there and everything that's done on the farm. So keep dates. When we talk about tillage, for instance, dates, type of tillage, depth of tillage, speed, that all needs to be recorded. The big one is geostamp photos to prove no-till in cover crops. Receipts for cover crops will not be enough. You'll need to prove that you had a stand established and that you captured greenhouse gas. Pictures to prove residue is still in place at planting will help you prove your no-till claims. In the USDA proposal, all farmers would be audited by a third-party auditor. Because this program is being implemented by the IRS, think of it like you do your taxes. Be ready to prove your claims. Farmers have been asking, when will the ethanol producers come out with something? They're in the same boat as us guys. While many have pilot programs in place that test the water for the logistics of this program, nobody knows for sure at this point. So in the end, I may have told you a lot about nothing. What I do know is a lot of crop tech customers would score well in this USDA proposed feedstock calculator. Many of you are using no-till and the 4R approach on your nitrogen. Many of you have cover crops in your portfolio, both winter kill and overwintering species. Stay the course. Just document everything. If this turns into a nothing burger, you're not out anything because it's your normal practice. This program is not for new practices only, so if you've been no-tilling for decades, you're still eligible. Growers that have not been paying attention to all this nonsense may have grain that your ethanol plant wants because of your practices. Now, the payments for 45Z are for a carbon asset, right? Carbon assets cannot be sold twice. So if you already sold your carbon asset to places like PepsiCo or Bayer, it cannot be used to lower your score for 45Z. Our crew continues to knock out the yield maps, and the meetings are going well. If you haven't got your data in here, you need to get it in here. No meeting without no data. The research team will be headed to Louisville Farm Show to meet with many of our plot sponsors and go over material from last year and talk about next year. We'll also be looking for new plot sponsors to add to our field trials next year. If you want us to add something to our plot program that you don't see in it already in our winter meetings, let us know. That farm show is a good place to find this stuff and find the people who can make it happen. To stay up to date, check out our website at croptechinc.com and subscribe to our podcast, Boots in the Field Report. Keep her safe, keep her moving.